Good morning all. You're very welcome this morning to our manufacturing webinar. We will take a brief look at Business Central, but the focus this morning will be very much around the manufacturing capability within Business Central. So look, I don't want to kill you with PowerPoint, but just to begin, who we are, ProStrategy, we've been around since 1985. We provide consulting, business applications and analytic services to SME and enterprise organizations throughout the country. We do provide end-to-end digital transformation. We have offices in both Dublin and also in Fermoy. We have approximately 65 people covering various aspects of the applications and services that we provide. As you can see there, we cover ERP, CRM, and customer engagement. We also have a practice which focuses on enterprise performance management using IBM tools, and we also have a team which provide data analytic and data management services. We've, as I said, been around for the last 35 years. We've over 200 customers. We have a proven methodology, and we've gone through in excess of 400 projects. We are ISO certified, and all of our key consultants are actually certified as well, either by Microsoft or IBM, and indeed our project management office, we would have fully qualified certified project managers. I suppose just to put in context what Business Central is, some of you may be familiar with what would have been known as Microsoft Dynamics NAV, which originated from a product called Navision. Microsoft now have in the market Business Central. So Business Central is effectively an evolution from Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So what does Business Central provide? It provides full financial, supply chain, manufacturing and warehousing capability, specifically focused on the SME market. Where does it fit within the overall Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem? If you're familiar with Microsoft Dynamics 365, there are a number of products under the banner of Microsoft Dynamics 365. We do have Business Central, you'll see here towards the end of the page, but there are a number of apps that are out there providing best of breed around project management, around field services, customer engagement, marketing, HR, and all linking into e-commerce, and also with things like Power BI providing great analytical capability as well. We intend doing this morning is, as I said, focusing more on the manufacturing piece within Business Central, and getting a feel for what manufacturing functionality exists, and giving you a brief overview of potentially how you may use manufacturing from a point of view within Business Central. So what we will do initially, we'll just go through Business Central as an application and just give you some idea as how the application works, the various functional areas that it covers, giving you some idea of how you might navigate through the system. And then, as I said, we'll focus very much on the manufacturing functionality and capability. And hopefully at the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So let's see if we can have a look at the product itself. I suppose to begin with, it is in the main, it's provided through a web client. There are various ways of accessing the information within Business Central. We can either do it through a web client, we can do it through a tablet client, and we can also do it through a phone client. So wherever you are, you have that capability of looking into your business system and seeing what's happening within your organization. What we're looking at here is the home page in relation to the role of accountant. So Business Central very much provides, based on the function that you provide within the organization, your home screen should actually reflect that. So at the moment we're looking at the accountant screen. We'll see at the very top here it's indicating the company that we're working within. NAV is a multi-company, multi-currency system. I can see the various areas that typically an accountant would actually focus on around finance, cash management, around your customers and your vendors, your orders, etc., etc. As we move down the screen, we'll see that we do have a number of KPIs that are in front of us around payments here. We can see we have the typical red, amber, green scenario where we can see whether or not from a KPI we are actually performing as we expect to perform. As I said, within Business Central, the ability on the homepage to make this applicable to the person who's actually within the role is key. Wherever I see a little hand here, it means I can actually drill down and see the actual documents that make up that 39 figure there of invoices that are due for payment. So these are payments that are either overdue or due today. And that ability to drill down and see information is throughout the system. So whether it's with regard to payments, whether it's with regard to looking at balances, I can drill down and see where are those figures actually coming from. I can see they're coming from 4 accounts here, but if I want to look in more detail at maybe a particular account, I can actually drill down and it will give me the individual entries that make up that account. As I said, when we enter the system, as my role here is identified as being an accountant, but there are a number of pre-configured roles that exist within the system. And you can actually build your own specific roles that may be pertinent to your company. So as you can see here, as we go down through, whether it's sales or project management, or whether it's purchasing, or whether it's production, we do have specific roles for people involved in specific tasks. Multi-company, as I said, Business Central does provide the facility to have multiple companies sitting within your application. And these may be in different base currencies. So you may have a company either operating in the UK or in Northern Ireland, which may be in a GBP base currency. You then may have a company operating in the Republic of Ireland, which may be Euro, or in France, a Euro-based company. And all can be controlled, and you can move between those companies within the application. Business Central also provides the facility to consolidate those companies. So there is consolidation features with translation methods, exchange rates, etc., being applied. Okay, let me just delve into a few other aspects of Business Central as an application. Previously, when we wanted to extend the functionality of what typically would have been Navision or Dynamics NAV, we would have went directly to the code within the application and directly to the database and would have configured it or customized it specific to the customer requirement. That has evolved now, whereby the base application remains static. And in order to extend the functionality specific to a particular company or based on a particular industry sector, what we use now is what we call extensions. So as the name implies, extensions extend the functionality that exists within the base Business Central application and provides effectively additional functionality to you by means of these extensions. So they may be something as simple as maybe doing something like getting address information. So this is a specific application to get UK postcodes. It may relate to payments. So there, for instance, this is just an example of a PayPal extension which allows for PayPal integration. Or it may be something like importing payroll information from QuickBooks. So again, there is an extension that exists now to help you to do that. So all of these extensions can actually be applied to your base application, and it just provides the facility whereby you can extend the base functionality to either specific industry or specific functionality that you require. Okay, as we move down the role center and the homepage for the accountant, as I said, we have our KPIs here. Some of the functionality that exists as standard within Business Central, things like approvals and document approvals, the ability to take in incoming documents, maybe OCR them and create invoices within the system. We also have things like the ability to create charts and graphs. We can embed things like Power BI reports. So again, optimizing your Microsoft applications, we can actually have our Power BI reports embedded within the base application. Some charts here, just by way of example here that can be created. Here's a simple cash flow. Again, if I hover here, I get some more information. And if I was to drill, it will actually drill down and bring me to the individual transactions that make up that balance. Okay, what I want to do now is to move into looking at the base system in a bit more detail. I suppose just from an application point of view, what does it actually provide? It does provide things like manufacturing, which we're going to focus on, our finances, project management, our whole supply chain, purchasing and sales, resource management, service management, and warehouse management. So Business Central provides all of this functionality from the base application. From the accountant point of view, again, the screen here is very much around what the accountant would require. So in finance, all of the elements of finance, journals, cash management, fixed assets, and document management as well. So just looking at the application itself, I'm just going to change from being an accountant and focus more now on being somebody who works in production. So I'm just going to move to the production planner. And what we should find is that the homepage here for the production planner looks a bit different. I'm now looking at things like product design, capacities, production orders. I'm looking at planning. I'm looking at item tracing, transfer orders, demand management. And again, the KPIs here are looking a bit different. I'm looking at what orders are in the system, what design bills of material are in the system, etc., etc. So you can see we can effectively configure this screen to the particular requirement of the production planner. In general, just let me focus on and use the item list. So the items, as in most manufacturing systems, would be the basis and the fulcrum of the manufacturing system. We have all of our items here. We'll see the replenishment system. So we can see that the first few items are something that we make. So we actually replenish them by making them through a production order. We also have things that we buy, that we purchase. And if I move on down, Business Central also provides what we would term light manufacturing capability. So where we may have assembly, where there may not be a full work center or routing requirement, but where it may be very simple light manufacturing, we can actually create what we call assembly orders as opposed to full manufacturing production orders. So assembly management does allow us to book obviously the components that are used in the assembly, and also allows us to book any time that we have inputted into that assembly order as well. Just from a general navigation and moving around within Business Central, if I was to go to search here, very simply, I'm just going to put in something here and start searching. You'll see the search begins to narrow down. It's actually searching here across all of the fields, but it's obviously picking up in description here, and it will pick up. We'll see we have wheel here, and we have it both at the end of the description, at the start of the description. It's also in capitals or non-capitals. It will pick up on all of that. What we can also do, we can create different views of the items here. So here I'm looking at all items, but I may want to just look at the items that we produce. So I can actually filter on just the items that are produced. And I can create this particular view myself. So I created one just a little bit earlier based on a supplier. So the Grone parts coming from a particular supplier, I can actually filter on the parts that that particular supplier provides to me. I can look at the items that we assemble and the assembly items. Okay, so I can create those filtered views very easily. I can also sort. So if I want to look at my inventory and I want to look at based on an ascending, descending, I can do that either on inventory, I can do it on number, I can do it on description. So whatever way I want to actually view this information. And if at the end of the day I've filtered on the information and I want to pop it out to Excel, I can just click on that and pop it out to Excel. So all of that capability, whether I'm filtering on items, customers, purchase order lists, production order lists, routings, whatever it may be, I have that capability of creating my own views of the information, and at any time I can just pop that out to Excel. As we saw earlier, if I want to drill down, let me just clear the filter here. I can show my filter pane here. I can actually set different filters if I want to. Let me just go back to all. I have the capability, as I said, of drilling down. So I'm just drilling down on the inventory information, and what it's bringing me to is effectively the stock records for that item. And I can see the remaining quantity, 27 here in the green location and 5 also in the green location. It's just giving me an indication of how the inventory has moved. So it's giving me a full inventory history here of the movements of that particular item. Okay, if I want to look at maybe the item in a bit more detail, I'm just going to move to what we call the item card. As I said, the item is the basis of most manufacturing systems. Right, the item card. So this is effectively where all of the information regarding the item is actually held. I could spend the rest of the demo just talking about item card, but there are some key features that I want to show you here. We obviously have the item and the description of the item. We have the ability to have multiple base units of measure on the item. From a movement and a snapshot of what's actually happening with this item, I can drill down and see the 32. We saw that a bit earlier on the earlier screen, where I can see what my quantity is and where that quantity is. I can see what quantity is on production. So very quickly I can see, are we actually making the bicycle? What orders are in the system? And we'll talk about firm planned and released orders shortly. But I can see there that I do have some production taking place in relation to that particular item. And I can also see what sales orders. So very quickly I can get a view of what's actually happening with this particular item. I do have the ability to hold pictures of the item. I do have the capability of item attributes are important to you. So I can hold attributes, and these are user definable attributes. So whether it's color, depth, material, whatever attributes that you currently have around your items, we can actually maintain those, and we can actually use it as part of our searching and part of our analysis capability. The forecasting one there is an interesting one. With Azure AI capability, machine learning capability, we can actually apply that machine learning. There is an extension that you may have picked up on a little bit earlier around forecasting that will actually apply AI learning to your movements on your item and will actually suggest forecasts to you as well. So some other nice features around your item, being able to maintain documents. And so if I drill in here, I have a particular document, and again I can flow that document into maybe my purchase transactions or my sales transactions if that's required. I can also maintain notes, and I can also maintain links as well against. So links would be the capability of maybe I have a document somewhere within my system, maybe on SharePoint or whatever, and I want to be able to link that document to the item card. I can do that. Just going to hide what we call here our fact box just for a moment, just to open this screen out a little bit wider. Costing for the accountants among us, we have FIFO, LIFO, specific, average, or standard. All can be set differently depending on the item. We have full pricing, whether it's purchase or sales pricing, and discounting capability. I won't have time to show you all that today. I'm just going to focus here just on the replenishment. So the ability to replenish. As I said, usually our replenishment is based on a purchase, something that we buy, a production order, something that we actually make, or something that we assemble. And there are various setups here around if it's something that we buy, something that we push through our production cycle, or whether it's something going through assembly. Just from a production point of view, we do have our capability here to, within an item, to set up what we call routings and to set up production bills of material. And I will spend a little bit more time on these now shortly. We also have flushing methods, so whether it's pick forward, pick back, whether it's back flushing, manual picking, kitting, we can provide for all of that. We also have scrap and yield capabilities, and we also have lot sizing capability that we can set against the item. From a planning perspective, we can actually set planning based on either demand or based on inventory level. So inventory level typically for your high volume, low value, where you may have just a fixed reorder point. So we can set our reorder quantity and our reorder points. We also have lot for lot and order, which will be demand based. So order would be where an order would match to a sales order. So a production order would match to a sales order, or lot where we may be making in batches based on forecast. But all of that capability is there within the system. For any of you that are involved in food or pharma, where tracking is important, we do have the ability to track based on lot numbers or serial numbers. Again, I hopefully will get a chance just to give you a brief look at what we call item tracing. So if you have a recall or something like that and you need to trace through on a batch, and that capability is actually here within the system. Okay, so if I go back to my product design, as I said, we have items. Stock keeping units are effectively items that exist within a particular location. So if I look at a stock keeping unit, it's really the item, but specifically within the location. So this allows for distribution models whereby you may have a central hub, you may then be replenishing out to different locations, and we can actually set up the replenishment for the different hubs. So rather than it being purchase, production, or assembly, it may be a transfer, and that transfer may be coming from a central hub. So again, the distribution planning model does actually is provided for. Okay, so just going back to product design and items, I'm just going to run very quickly to help us to understand that, to a report here. So I'm just going to search here. If I want to find anything within the system, I can actually just use a very simple search capability here. And I'm just going to go to what's called the detailed calculation. And what the detailed calculation provides is a breakdown of the costing in a report for the actual bicycle. So I'm just going to concentrate on the bicycle, and I'm just going to preview on that. And let me just focus on this just a little bit. And so what we're saying is that the cost of this particular bicycle, the cost of manufacture is actually $361.24. It's made up of two inputs of cost. One, the cost of production, which is your work center or resource cost. And the second is your cost of components. And here we have our cost of components. And essentially what we have here, when we looked at the item card, we had routing and we had the bill of material. So this is effectively your bill of material cost at the end. So we have our items that are going into making the bicycle. And here we have the routing cost. So these are the various work centers or machine centers with the various breakdown of setup time, runtime cost, then coming through, and the total cost of production. So we have our routing cost, we have our bill of material cost, hence giving us our overall unit cost for our item. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. As we said, when we looked at the item card, we saw that we had established that the routing was, funnily enough, 1000, which is the bicycle number, and the production BOM was also 1000. So what I want to do is just maybe focus just a little bit on the production BOMs and setting up production BOMs, and also with regard to work centers and routings. So let's go to production BOMs, and let's just focus on the production BOM, which is for our bicycle. So here we have our production BOM, which breaks out the various items, the various quantities. We'll see from the header we have capability of setting up various versions of the BOM, and we can see the active version at the moment is actually Rev 2. I can actually navigate to our production BOM versions. So let me just look at those two versions. So here we have our first revision, which was released on the 1st of the 1st 20. And we had a revision then which has come through on the 1st of February 20. The differences between those BOMs we can actually view as well. So let me just go to our matrix per version. So what the matrix per version will actually give us, if I show the matrix here, it just puts our versions side by side and allows us to see what differences have actually taken place between the versions. So to identify how that change has occurred or what that change is. And we can see for some reason there are 2 saddles being called for now in revision 2. Unusual, but there you go. Other functionality that we have in here, obviously we can, we've different status here. We can develop our builds of material. They can be under development. We can then release them. We can close them. We can certify them, and all of that can be audit trailed through the system. I did speak about scrap and yield. We can set a scrap percentage here as part of the component use. Where there may be a scrap that needs to be accounted for, maybe in setup, there may be a certain amount of product used in setup, and we can actually allow for that within the bill of material. Okay, let me just go to routings. So that's the bill of material. If we were to go to routings and we were to look at the routing here. So the routing is effectively the path through the operation that the bicycle will need to go through in order to be produced. So in this case, it's going through wheel assembly, chain, final, and then it's going through some sort of control process or QC. We can set up the from a version point of view, we can have different versions in creating. Similarly, in BOMs, we can simply use a previously created routing or previously created BOM when creating BOMs, and just copy that, obviously, to make it easier to quickly create a new record. But here we have the operations. It's going from the first operation, second, third, and fourth operation. We can set up time, run time, wait time, move time. We can have a fixed scrap quantity. So maybe as part of your initial setup, there is a scrap factor based not on the product, but based on the actual operation. So again, we can set those scrap percentages within the system. And all of those will actually be taken into account when we go and we calculate our cost of production. So as I said, this is our routing, and here are the various work centers and machine centers that the routing is actually going through. But what I'd like to do is maybe just spend a little time looking at those work centers and understand how those work centers are actually maintained. So if I go back to my capacities here and look at my work centers, and here I have my various work centers. If I look at my assembly department, packing, painting, machining, and again, totally user defined as to what those work centers may be. Let me just look at this particular work center here. And I can look on a month by month basis. We can set our capacity for the particular work center. So we can set our capacity, what we have available, and then we can actually see what's allocated within the work center. So effectively, this is a list of the various activities that are taking place within the work center and the allocated time. So whether it's setup or run time going through that particular work center. And we can see the time, date, starting time, ending time. All that information is clearly laid out. So this is effectively a work to list that we have for that particular work center. If we look at the work center in a bit more detail, I can have my notes and links that we saw a bit earlier. That capability is throughout the system. But within this work center, we can actually set our costing. So based on our costing here within the work center, so costing can actually be set at the work center, or based on the work center within a particular routing, we can also set what we call a specific unit cost. And that cost will be set on a specific routing. So we have a choice there as to how we set up those costings for the actual work center. A couple of other nice features here. If I go to my planning here, as I said, we can see our task list. So this is just looking at the particular operation here, looking at the production orders and what's going through. These are the firm planned and released production orders. We'll speak about the production order cycle in a little moment, but essentially I'm just getting a Workcenter task list and the times it's going through, and I can see the production orders that actually relate to that. Yeah. And I can move those around. The other thing that I can plan for is absence. So there may be, we need to plan in some maintenance here. I can put in my maintenance plan into our capacity absence, and obviously that will affect our capability, our capacity within the particular work center. So we can actually plan for that. Okay. Okay, so that's our work center. So just going back and just refreshing on all of that, just going to go to our detailed calculation again. I'm just going to run the report specifically for the bike. So our Workcenter costs are coming from, basically the Workcenter is working out a costing per minute, and is actually coming up with the setup and runtime, and then giving us a unit cost of 120, and working out based on our typical batch size what the cost would actually be. So I can see here our batch size is 10, so our setup time would obviously be distributed across those. So we're coming up with effectively per unit 11 for setup. We've 12 for our runtime and 23 giving us our unit cost. So it's all fairly logical within the system. If we had any scrap percentages on our bills of material, obviously that will be reflected here. So potentially you may actually call for more than one wheel or more than one back wheel, depending on scrap percentages here and the number that you're actually making. So that's just looking at the product design and looking at capacity, work centers, our routings, bills of material, and our item. What I want to look at now is our production orders and our production order cycle. I did refer to earlier that we do have capability around assembly orders. So let me just open up assembly order. And so this is an assembly order. The assembly here is calling for a particular storage unit to be made. We're looking for a quantity of 20 to be assembled. I haven't assembled any of this through this particular assembly order. So this is like a mini production order, and effectively this is our mini bill of material. I can actually see what's being called for here. I'm looking for side panel, base, top panel, rear panel, and doors, and there are my quantities that I need to input into the assembly order. So what I will be doing here will be simply indicating my quantity that I have assembled, and I would then be able to post that quantity and indicate what I've actually produced within the system. So that's a fairly quick means of recording the input of the components in producing and outputting a storage unit. However, in production, we obviously have a more detailed production cycle here. We have the facility to create simulated production orders, so maybe getting an idea on costing with regard to if I was to make so many units, the costing behind all of that, and understanding that. My planned orders are coming from my materials requirements planning or my master production scheduling activity. We will look at the planning worksheet in a bit more detail shortly. So the normal cycle would be that production orders would go through initially a suggested plan. then we would decide to move that suggested plan to a firm planned order, so putting it into our planning horizon, but not actually releasing it to the floor. Released production orders obviously will be orders that have been released to the floor. And then our finished production orders is holding the information with regard to completed production orders and the analysis behind what actually happened within each of those production orders. So if I go to, let me just go to my firm plan production orders. As I said, usually prior to releasing our firm plan production orders, we would be looking at things maybe like, let me see if I can show you maybe a shortage report. So typically, if we don't have the material, well then it doesn't make sense to actually release the firm planned order to production. So I can do things like getting a view with regard to that particular production order. Where we have, I can see a requirement for 30 in relation to this firm plan amounting. Quantity on purchase we do actually have. So I could chase that down, see where that 1,000 is, maybe expedite that 1,000 and get them into the system in order that I can proceed with my firm plan production order. Production orders themselves. So let's just have a quick look at a production order. So here we are looking at production orders. So this is the production order itself. It's for the bicycle. It is for a quantity of 16. It's giving me here my start and my ending date. So this is my production with a due date of the 30th of the 1st. I suppose straight off, what can I see when I look at this production order? I can see, well, I have remaining quantity 16, so we haven't actually an output from this production order as yet. But I can start looking at things like statistics or what's actually happening within this production order. I have my standard cost, my expected cost, and my actual cost. From an actual cost point of view on material here, I can see I'm slightly less than what I expected to be. It's -3%. Capacity, I can see here that we haven't actually inputted any cost from a capacity input as yet. I can see there is actually no what we call capacity ledger entry, so we haven't actually recorded as yet any resource time or activity at the work centre in relation to this particular production order. How do we record against the production order? We record using what's called a production journal, a very simple screen, which allows us to record the consumption. And again, the flushing method, it may be based on output, so we may actually we don't need to record the consumption. Rather than it being manual, it may be set for backward flushing. We do have all of our items here that we need to input or consume. But I can see they've already been consumed. But what I can record then from an output point of view, as the item progresses through the various work centers, I can actually record that. So I can record my setup time, my run time, my output, which is what has moved from the wheel assembly and is now going into the chain assembly. So it gives me full visibility, and it will actually indicate once we've completed at one particular work center within the production order, that will be identified here as being complete. So we have full capability of looking at production and seeing exactly where that production order is within the cycle. What I'm hoping to do now is just to maybe go through an example, and hopefully what we've just gone through will make a little bit more sense. So we haven't too much more time left, so this may be fairly quick, but I'm hoping it'll give you a good overview as a practical example of how manufacturing might work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the customer. I'm going to start with an actual sales order, and I'm just going to create a new sales order here, and that number will auto generate. I'm now going to look for my customer. Again, I can start typing here, and it's trying to find that particular customer. So I'm just going to go for this one here, the Canon Group. Okay, so I'm on the 12th of September 2021, and that's my day today. He's looking for a bicycle, and he is supplied out of, again, user definable locations. You can set up all of your locations in here, and he's looking for a quantity of 100. My pricing will automatically populate through. I suppose what I notice here very quickly, I have my notifications here. Customer credit limit is exceeded, and usually sales ignore that and just proceed anyway. The available inventory is lower than the entered quantity at this location. So very quickly I can show details in relation to what we're trying to do here. I can see that we're looking for 100. Our current requirement is 100. We don't have any in stock, so obviously we have a shortage of 100. It is indicating in all locations, so maybe I might have an opportunity to move it from another location. Maybe that may be part of the solution, but for today's exercise, I'm just going to ignore that and just ignore my other notifications. I'm just going to extend my fact box. We saw this concept of a fact box earlier. When I'm entering my sales order, it is actually giving me an indication of previous customer history, so I get a good 365 of what's actually happening with that customer. Do we have current ongoing sales orders or quotes with that customer? I'd be able to pick up on all of those in here, and as I said, at any stage I can drill down and see what are the underlying documents and drill through to those particular documents to see what's actually happening with that customer. Also, with regard to, there's my customer details. I can start sending emails here if I want to as well. The whole integration with Outlook, which we won't cover today. But just with regard to sales line detail, it is actually saying we have a requirement for 100. Here again, it's basically just telling me the same thing we saw in the message, in the notification message. We don't actually have any in stock here to work with. That attachment thing, as we saw earlier, I can do that on throughout the system, whether it's customer sales orders, items, suppliers, whatever it may be. We have all that capability. So we have our order here, and we don't have any stock. So one of the things that we can do here is if I go to Action and Plan, and I go to Order Promising, I know I don't have any availability on it, but what I can run is a capable to promise. So this is looking if we were to produce this item, how long is it going to take me to produce it? So based on all of the setup times and run times that we've set up, based on the routing, it's picking up on all of that information. I'm clicking on Capable to Promise. It's going out, it's working out and deciding, well, if we were to make this item, yeah, we would actually have it available. So the earliest ship date is the 30th. We are actually on the 12th. That was the original. And I'm just going to accept that for the moment. So what I should find on the order, so typically the sales order person will say, well, actually, the best I can do, we can get it to you, will be delivered on the 1st of October. If that's acceptable to the customer, we can actually progress that. We do have the facility here within the sales order from a planning perspective to actually go ahead and actually generate or create a production order. Now that may be pushing the authority of the salesperson a bit far. What I've done, I've configured it this morning to actually go to the production planner So it would actually be the production planner that would actually pick up on that particular requirement. So if I was to go to my planning worksheet, and my planning worksheet is effectively where I will go to if I want to run my MPS or my MRP. So this is my planning engine effectively. And we'll see here it has created an entry from the sales order. It has created a suggested planned production order of 100, which is starting on the 13th, finishing on the 29th. And again, I should have the ability here to look at my order tracking here. So again, I can see it's a link to my sales order. So from a production planner point of view, I can see, well, where is this coming from? Where is this demand coming from? And I can see it's the sales order. So very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept that recommendation. I'm going to create a firm planned production order. So I'm going to carry out the action message, and I'm going to move that to a firm planned production order, and OK on that. Well, we've moved from the sales order and we've now created a production order. If I go to my production and I go to my firm planned production orders, and there I have my firm planned production order. And it's starting on the 13th, finished on the 29th. It's for 100 bicycles. It's on our main warehouse or location is where that's actually going to happen. Just a couple of quick things to look at. If I look at my components, so effectively, this is a list of the components, obviously based on our revision 2 of the bill of material. I have a list of all of my components. My expected quantity in order to make the 100 bicycles is 100. Remaining quantity, I haven't issued any of those. But what you are picking up on here, again, I configured for a number of these items an automatic reservation. So what's actually happening, if I click on this particular reservation here, I can see item ledger entry means that it's reserved from stock effectively. But in releasing the production order to firm planned, it's actually auto reserving my stock now to my firm planned production order. So it's creating a link between my component in stock and my production order. There's a couple here down the bottom which have reservations. But you'll see that those reservations actually are related to a purchase order. So a purchase order 106026. So we don't have it in stock yet, but what it's saying is it has automatically, knowing that this stock is coming in and is due in, it has attached that requirement or that demand to the actual purchase order. And I think if we were to look at this one here, it's the same purchase order. If we were to go back and look at our report and our shortage, we should actually show our 4 items that need to be ordered, for which we have no reservation in place yet. So there we go. And what I'm going to do is go back to my planning worksheet, and I'm going to actually run my planning worksheet. So this is effectively where I would generate either my MPS, my master production schedule, or my MRP in this case, to actually buy the components. So what I should find is here, if I click OK on that, it should be suggesting to us that we buy the 4 components. And here we have our 4 components. Again, why are we buying those components? Well, again, I can go and navigate and look at the order tracking. And the order tracking is saying that, it's for a production order, but that production order is actually for that sales order. So again, full traceability as to why I need to buy these particular items. So I'm just going to speed this up a little bit, guys. I'm actually going to go and process this. I'm going to carry out the action message. I'm going to make my purchase orders. Okay on that. And now if I go to my purchase orders, those purchase orders may actually have to go through some sort of an approval process. But what I should find is that I have, for my 4 components, the last 2 orders here are my last 2 orders. So there's for 3 of the components, and the last one there is for 1 of the components. So they're the 4 components on order. I'm just going to very quickly post these and receive them so that we have the stock. And do the same for this one. And again, for this one as well, which was the other components that were on order already prior to us running our planning engine, receive all of those. So now we have all of our stock. And what I'm going to go back to now is our firm plan production order. I'm going to release it to I'm going to release that and change the status effectively to a released production order. I'm going to go to my release production orders, and there's my release production order. And I'm very quickly going to go to our production journal. So this, you remember, is where we record the activity. And effectively, I'm just going to record in here our material usage. And I could maybe record in here maybe some runtime and record that, and also our output quantity. So I'm just going to post our production journal. And so effectively what I've done there is I've made the product, I've consumed all of my material required. If I go to my stats, again, I'm seeing what my material requirement and usage is. So because we use less saddles, I can see that. My capacity cost, I can see where my capacity came from, and my capacity recording of through the various operations, what the actual time going through those were. So all of that information is held within the system. I suppose more importantly, now we've produced the item. Back on the sales order, if I go back to my sales order and we look at what's happening on my sales order, so this is where we started. And you'll see my reserve quantity is now pointing to stock. So we actually have it in stock. So I can just go ahead and post and ship that particular item. And if I was to look at the item history, what I should be picking up in here, the last 2 items. One is the output, which is our production of the 100. And there's our sales shipment of it moving through the system. Okay, guys, I've just gone slightly over there. Are there any questions that you want to ask at this stage?
Hi, Joe. Can you phase and start with assembly and grow to full manufacturing within Business Central?
You can. So from a licensing perspective, there are 2 licenses. One is Essentials, and the ability to utilize the assembly capability is within the Essentials package. So yeah, absolutely, you can start with assembly and then move to a full production cycle if that's what you require. Absolutely. Any other question? I'm just very quickly showing you here item trace capability. So this is where we have lot traceability capability. So whether it's from usage to origin or origin to usage, we can actually see where a lot has been used either within production or where it has been sold. So we do have that full lot and serial traceability as well that can be applied. Any other questions? So guys, hopefully you found that useful. With regard to contacting us, if you need any further information, we will send out the PowerPoint, but you can contact either myself or Mark, and we'd be happy to explore Business Central with you further or answer any questions that you might have.